Shalom and welcome to another edition of Israeli Salad. Today we'll see how halacha and science can coexist, learn about the Tchelet, and meet a school from the U.S. that came to learn and hike in Israel. All this and our weekly insight right after this. In the ancient Jewish text, you can't find any reference about using a car on Shabbat or an answer to when to observe Shabbat while you're on the moon. Well, actually, you can find answers if you delve into the sources. I visited the Institute for Science and Halacha in Jerusalem to find the answer to these kind of questions.
Nearly 40 years ago, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Halperin and a group of yeshiva rabbis and students founded the Institute for Science and Halacha. The group's goal was to develop a sound halachic base for dealing with all matters connected with science and modern technology. The Institute brings together electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and programmers on one side, and rabbis and yeshiva students on the other side. The Institute deals with the halachic implications to the quick development of science and technology in the past centuries.
If you look at the way of life from the time of the Mishnah and before, you can see that even when the conditions changed, the Torah continued to be relevant to the way of life for each generation. Today the changes are so quick that a change that would once have taken many years could take place in only a few hours. So our role is to make it possible to spread the Torah and let its light radiate in the reality of modern life.
Technology is not a threat to Judaism. Science is also not a threat to Judaism. The sages in the Talmud, when trying to describe concepts or analyze concepts, they always used case studies. Our job here is to take those case studies and see what would they look like today.
The Institute for Science and Halacha is divided into two main parts. The Lehava Institute, the educational division, deals with the understanding of how Jewish life should coexist with the advancement of technology. Rabbi Shmuel Strauss and the rest of his institute visit educational and religious institutes and teach people how to relate to any new device and invention they may encounter.
Take a look at how it's made, and don't be afraid of what the answer is going to be, but try and analyze what it's made of and what concepts might apply. And then you can discuss it, and you find that the halachic question becomes part of the learning process rather than do, don't, and therefore I'm afraid to ask.
The educational division also helps give answers to Jewish people with questions from all over the world.
We have a responsive service where anybody can send questions that they have and get a fax or an email back on various halachic issues.
The other big part of the Institute consists of the research and development laboratories. The Institute has provided solutions accepted by many streams of Jewish society for a variety of complex halachic challenges. In the Institute's museum, Rabbi Strauss showed me a few examples of these solutions.
In the discussion about whether or not one can use an electric wheelchair on Shabbat, we're proposing an alternate solution of using a mechanical wheelchair powered by air. We're experimenting with developing a keyboard that would work indirectly, so that somebody could receive patients to a hospital on Shabbat and be able to input his information and follow up the medical procedures accurately through the computer. How would one be able to use a computer on Shabbat? By creating a situation where grama, or indirect action, typing of the information into the computer. There are a number of companies that want a marketing edge of being able to provide refrigerators that have certification for use on Shabbat. Part of the problem would be when one opens a fridge, then just opening it will turn the fan on or off. There's also heating elements in the wall of the fridge which are considered eish, are considered lighting a fire on Shabbat. So we would take a fridge and we would set up a whole new system to check for heat, cold, and try to make sure that we could work it in accordance with whatever specifications were needed for use on Shabbat.
On a visit of Israeli engineers and scientists to the institute, the visitors told Rabbi Halperin how they see this institute.
They said you're like the sages from ancient times who took the day-to-day life, delved into the Torah, and came out with the answers relevant to the reality of life.
It seems like systems which are focused on different populations have an awareness of the religious population needing some kind of certification.
One of the last publications put out by the Institute relates to the Jewish halacha in space. The book was put out in memory of Colonel Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli astronaut who was killed in the Columbia disaster.
Ilan Ramon contacted me through a Chabad rabbi from Los Angeles, and I gave him answers on how he should act as a Jew while in space. After he died, I said his actions proved to be a sanctification of God's name. As a result of that encounter, I wrote this book in his memory.
Rabbi Halperin and his institute hope to reach as many Jews as possible to spread their message. The message is of a living Torah that is relevant for each generation.
The Gemara says about the Torah, delve and delve into it because it contains everything. The Torah has everything that a person needs in each and every generation. But you can't just sit back and think you'll see it. When you have a question, you must delve into the Torah and you'll find the answers.
In the book of Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 15, the Torah says, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying to them that they make fringes on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of each corner a thread of blue, Tchelet. And it shall be for you as a fringe, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of God and do them." A few weeks ago, Rabbi Samson explained to us the meaning of the commandment of tzitzit. This week, Mark Kaplan takes us to the Tchelet factory in Kfar Adumim, where the blue dye is manufactured.
As a child, I liked to collect shells at the beach. But who would have thought that collecting shells had something to do with a mitzvah of observing a Torah commandment? We visited the Tchelet factory in Kfar Adumim.
The Torah commands the Israelites to place fringes on four-cornered garments and to place a blue thread among the fringes. The Talmud talks of the chilazon, a shellfish, from which the blue dye for tzitzit is extracted. But due to the exile and persecution over the years, the source of the chilazon became lost for almost 1,300 years. But 150 years ago, that changed. The source was not used, though, because the dye came out purple instead of blue.
It wasn't until the early 1980s when a professor by the name of Otto Elsner from the Schenker College of Fibers in Ramat Gan discovered the secret. By producing the dye under the sun, the UV rays convert the purple dye into unadulterated blue dye. Here we have a beaker with the dye already produced in it, and then I have some wool here which I'm taking out.
Which doesn't look all the way blue.
Right. As a matter of fact, it doesn't look blue at all from the bottom where the dye really is. It's a sort of a yellowish. But as we're standing here speaking, it's oxidating and it's becoming more and more blue.
I see up above here it says L'shem mitzvah tzitzit and L'shem mitzvah tchelet, which means for the sake of the mitzvah, the commandment of tzitzit and of tchelet.
Basically, every stage of making tzitzit has to be done explicitly for its purpose. You know, we could easily attach a machine here and have it start going, but everything has to be L'shem mitzvah tzitzit, and so there's an issue of being specific that the person is doing it. And so here you have a man-operated machine.
All right, so what have we got here?
Okay, this is the machine that produces the fine strands from the tufts of wool. These basically make the individual strings.
So you got the big thick stuff here, and
it travels down and gets pulled tight into a thin strand.
Looks like a fun toy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but I gotta say L'shem mitzvah tzitzit.
Right.
Okay, so it's L'shem mitzvah tzitzit. It's not hard to turn.
Right.
Obviously, this is kind of a new process.
Correct.
I mean, we didn't have something like this a few thousand years ago.
In ancient times, they used to pull the wool by hand. What I'm holding here is a giant block of baby snail eggs. And actually inside each one of these little sacks is about 30 to 100 eggs themselves. And all the snails come, and they when the water warms up, they lay all these eggs, and then from here they hatch. Okay, so here you have the chilazon in its quote-unquote natural habitat. We have an aquarium here, and you see them. They basically like to live among the rocks and sand at the bottom of the sea, which also matches well with a traditional source which says they're wrapped up in the bottom of the sea, and that refers to the chilazon. Rabbi Meir says, Tchelet domeh leyam, v'yam domeh l'rakia, v'rakia l'kisei hakavod. That Tchelet is really similar to the sea, and the sea is similar to the sky, and the sky is similar to the color of God's holy throne. What it's telling us is that this is supposed to remind us that there's a creator of the universe, and he has plans for the world, and he has plans for us, and we're supposed to do what he asks of us.
Reporting from somewhere in the Mediterranean, this is Mark Kaplan for Israeli Salad.
For the next report, I went underground into one of the Beit Guvrin caves near Beit Shemesh. In the cave, I met students and teachers from the Melvin J. Berman Hebrew Academy in Maryland, who, in the middle of their learning schedule, came to learn and hike in Israel.
And we have brought almost 200 students for a learning and solidarity mission, and we closed the entire school down because we wanted to teach the kids that we wanted them to be real with what we were learning about Zionism and about learning Tanakh and being a part of the Jewish people.
We're visiting important sites that have meaning insofar as teaching Tanakh is concerned, teaching the Bible. And this is a real learning experience for our students, and also an expression of our school's solidarity with all those who live in Eretz Yisrael.
The whole program is 11 days, and we started out in Zichron Yaakov, and then we went to Tzfat, and then we went to Yerushalayim, and then we're making our way down through Beit Guvrin.
We're digging into Beit Guvrin, and we're trying to help out with the Israeli archaeologists, because it's got to be a lot of pain to do all this work by themselves, and basically we come and we get to dig and have fun and
everything where it is right now, and start following Avi all the way to the top. Once everybody's in place, we'll start passing the buckets up.
trying to have the students experience the footsteps of the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Tanaim and Amoraim that are in the Gemara and the Mishnah, and to really relive the experience that they had, and to have the pages of their learning come alive for them. It's interesting because usually when you come with your family, you go and you hike and you go to the Kotel, but here we got to go and you see you're walking in the footsteps where our forefathers walked, and it's a very interesting way to learn from it.
Actually, interestingly, about 40% of these students have never been to Israel. The other 60% have been to Israel before, but they're all very, very excited, and they're all cleaving to the land of Israel and to the people of Israel very much, and wanting to get as much as they can out of this trip and for sure come back. And many of them are already talking about Aliyah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be in Israel. Very short. I don't want to leave. Maybe I'll just stay.
My visit in Israel is great. I've been here plenty of times, and I love it even more every time I come.
It's great. It's my first time in Israel, and I'm really enjoying it.
My students have really been turned on to their learning, and they're very excited, and many of the students have expressed interest in coming back to learn in yeshivot.
Well, we're hoping that they're feeling in touch with the spirituality that we have in Israel, and that you can only find here. In other words, you look at the mountains in America, they're not the same as the mountains in Israel, and all the sites that we see here in Israel, it's a different level, and we're hoping that that's what they can tap into over here.
I think the best moment was when we were on the plane and we just landed in Israel, and I looked around at all my friends from our school and all the people that had never been to Israel before, and everyone was had tears in their eyes and was just so excited that we knew what we were just about to get into.
The most special moment for me was when we were climbing Arbel Cliff, and we got to the highest point, and all around us we could see the mountains of Meron and the Galil, and we also saw Yam Kinneret, and we saw so much from the top of that cliff, and the tour guide, we opened up our Tanakh and we read the psukim from Parshat Lech Lecha about Israel, and it was just really moving because everyone was looking around and everything that we saw is our land. It's really important that we should walk in it.
Wow, now that's a cool school trip. Last week, Rabbi Tuvia Bolton said that sometimes the ceremony of the bar mitzvah ends up being 99% bar and only 1% mitzvah. So let's get a better understanding of the bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah celebrations. Shalom, Rabbi Samson. What's the meaning of this big birthday party?
Shalom, Yoni. Shalom to all of our listeners. When you talk about a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah for a woman, you're talking about a pivotal birthday, not just another teenage birthday. And everywhere in the world, people grow up, and there's an age where a young adult becomes of age. Usually it's around 18, 19, 20 around the world. And at that time, a person can choose for himself. Sometimes he can vote, drive, drink beer, do all kinds of things that youngsters cannot do and older people can do. In Judaism, the age is really kind of low. It's at 12 for a girl and 13 for a boy. The understanding is that girls actually mature faster, something which biologically and psychologically is a known phenomena. And boys at age 13 are on par with the girls at age 12. And this is the age where a boy is expected to be self-responsible. And he's responsible for his activities. And his father becomes a mentor rather than someone who is totally in charge and responsible for his son's activity.
And how is this birthday celebrated?
Well, it's a custom to celebrate this birthday especially, and it's usually celebrated with a lot of friends. And the main part of the celebration is bar mitzvah, means the person is obligated to do mitzvot, and it's usually celebrated by doing the new mitzvot that the young child or man is now obligated to do. One of the mitzvot, which is very common, is tefillin. And it's the first time where the youngster can actually perform the mitzvah of tefillin as required. And very often here in Israel, people will go to the kotel for the first time when he puts on his tefillin.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Samson.
The Weekly Insight is brought to you in cooperation with Machon Meir, the largest Zionist institute in Israel, bringing people closer to Judaism.
Okay, that'll be all for this week. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to join us again next week for another edition of Israeli Salad.